I am a mom. I have a 20-year-old and I own a business. Part of my business is helping other people solve problems and create opportunities. And so I get to wear a lot of different hats and I hear a lot about other things that people are walking through themselves. So I think coming to the Sound Spa, one of the things that I was experiencing is just a lot happening in my personal life that over the years continued to add to the backpack that I was carrying with me everywhere. My backpack was getting really full and it was very heavy. And I just continued to add things to it. And when you slowly add things to your life over time, sometimes you forget how heavy it already was. And I actually was coming to Sound Spa after I had gone through a personal health journey of releasing 90 pounds. I started to recognize what it felt like to be in my skin and in my bones and in my structure without all of this extra weight. And after I released some of that weight, I started to recognize that there was other weights that I was carrying that actually didn't feel like weight that you would experience if I was on a treadmill or something, but it was just emotional weight that was draining me. It wasn't until I got rid of the physical weight that I was ready to actually do something about more of the emotional weight. After I got rid of some of the physical weight, more of the emotional weight showed up. And so that is when I found you guys and I was really excited. I had started working out and I broke out in hives. They couldn't get the hives under control for 2 months and they couldn't figure out what was going on. In the end, they decided that at the weight I was causing my body such trauma with the classes that my heart was really overworking. Once we figured that out and realized my body was in such chaos, I took the reins and I was like, that's it. It made such an impact on me. And I found it to be very simple with what I was doing in my life and how busy my schedule was. I think the difference between where I started with Sound Spa, when I was starting to unpack some of the emotional baggage that really had been dark and deep because I had unpacked a lot over the years in my life, from where I started to where I am now, I would say I couldn't stop. My brain, I would lay down at night and my brain would be racing. And if I woke up in the middle of the night, that was it. I may as well just get up and I would get back on the computer and just work or solve problems. Even in the height of difficult times in our lives, I would go to work because I knew how to win there. And I couldn't stop my mind anyway. And I was just going to be spinning out about something. The difference between where I was when I started was that I was tense, stressed. I was getting more than one massage a month to try and keep up with it. I was seeing my chiropractor all the time, doing all these things to bring my stress levels down. It really just wasn't working. Life was heating up. There was a lot happening in my business. It was growing. And in those circumstances, those beautiful storms, I did not know how to manage the stress because I couldn't turn my mind off. And so I was feeling it everywhere and was starting to experience some physical symptoms around the amount of stress I was carrying in my shoulders and my neck. I was doing yoga. And when I found the Sound Spa, the first time I laid on the mat, I really believed I was going to have to get out of there. I did not believe that I could lay there the whole time. And that first experience, I noticed there was a noticeable difference. Well, my mind was like, I wonder what they're going to do next. I wonder what that means. And okay, now we must be done. And it seems like it's been a long time. Like all the thoughts, I just kept centering back and I was able to follow the directions. And now when I lay on the mat, I do the things that you guide us through and the breathing. I can lay there in stillness and be at peace. My mind doesn't race. And if it does, I can recenter it. And that is something that I can do even when I'm not on the mat. And that is not something that was a part of my normal life, maybe ever. But the fact that I've been able to do that has been absolutely incredible because that peace that I can carry just transcended anything else and has allowed me to pass that on to other people, both by sharing the Sound Spa, but also by being able to pass that on in the work that I get to do because I have a new level of peace. The first time I was at the Sound Spa, actually, we should go back to the first time I was exposed to the Sound Spa, thanks to Noelle. She came to one of our holy yoga classes. I was in a large group room laying on a very uncomfortable yoga mat. Noelle was like, we have really nice mats. And I'm like, that's good because this was wildly uncomfortable. So I was in a setting where I was used to trying to be Zen and was exposed to it. And even in that environment where there definitely were not good acoustics and Noelle had to bring everything in, there was just a noticeable difference. I was following all of the instructions to scan QR codes and figure out how to get back there very quickly. When I came to the studio for the first time, as somebody who is like a type A personality and I just need things to be organized and all of that, it was comforting to walk in. In fact, the first time I stormed through the door, I was like, I'm here. It was beautiful because they were so calming as I'm flying in the door from my very important life and whatever was happening in my head that day. But everything was so streamlined. You just stop here, you can put your things in here safely, and people are friendly. There's not stuff everywhere. And then you collect the different items that you want. They walked me through beautifully, like getting in there. And then I was like, okay, now what do we do? And and now you wait. And I'm like, I don't really know what that means. I brought a lot to the room. And I appreciated the fact that the team was calm. I had some room to just give myself space to go, this is going to be okay. And I didn't feel like anybody was being condescending. No, you're totally fine. We're glad you're here and let me walk you through. I got in and they helped me find my way. There was a lovely person there who has been there like 200 times and she was telling me about it, which was also helpful. But then I was able to, what I appreciated is that there are very guided instructions. One of the things I would encourage somebody to do if they're coming for the first time is just put everything, including your brain, in your cubby, because you need everything in the cubby. There's nothing that you're going to need in that room. Just go in and allow yourself to follow instructions. They will tell you everything to do. You do not have to think at all. And there's just something very comforting about that. Once I laid down, I followed the instructions that I got. I knew where to scan my body. I knew how to breathe. I knew when I was supposed to breathe and when I could stop doing the breathing thing so much. There was just so much around it that made it very easy for me. And I do appreciate following directions. So maybe that's my personality, but that was game changing. And I did, of course, have the thoughts about, okay, I wonder what's going to happen next. And why is there air moving around me? But they already answered that question. I found it to be very comforting. And I also understood the rhythm of what it would be like the next time. And so I now know when we're going into grounding instruments versus when we're in this part. And I just appreciate it. If I do have one of those hyper focused moments, I can go, nope, we're not there yet. It's fine. And so I just have found things along the way that have given me that. The first time for me was a lot that I brought to the table, but the reality is the experience itself created a space for peace. And I was better after that first session and knew that's what I needed. My commitment was, this is something that's getting added to my regime because I deserve it. The people I serve deserve it and my family deserves it. When I think about whether or not I had doubts about sound or kind of questions, what was the intended purpose of sound? I am somebody who, my faith is very important. My concerns were more about what was your intended purpose with it? Why do you think you're doing this for me? What else might you be doing that I don't know that you're doing or that this is used for? And I have to say, and whether Noelle or the team remember it or not, I asked a lot of questions, a lot of times to see if I got a lot of the same answers. Because it was important to me. I think oftentimes the clinician or the practitioner is just as important as the experience because intended use and intended purpose is important to me. And I think it's important. It really is. It's an important factor to be considered. For me, that was probably my biggest thing. If I can experience something and it serves me or it hits the mark on something that makes a noticeable difference in my life. And so I would say those are probably the biggest questions. I don't have to understand how it all works or what were you doing to that instrument. You all are so thoughtful all the time to ask, do you have any questions? Not really. Like, I'm really glad you know what to do. I don't need to know what to do. I think some of the things that I've noticed about your team and about the team at the Sound Spa and the people that are practicing it there is I've noticed the consistency, which I think is really important for people to be able to come and find comfort, especially if they're in chaos or in a highly adaptive state, maybe in fight or flight. I found that not only was the experience consistent, but what the practitioners were doing were consistent and what they believed about what they were doing, the way they talked about it. I didn't have to worry that if I wasn't getting this person that, oh gosh, it's going to be random and we don't know. Like you can count on leaving knowing you might feel different each time, but I could count on that, like knowing that I solved the same problem, right? Like I felt more at peace than I did when I came in. I think I also really appreciated that they were comfortable answering questions about it and that there was an extensive amount of knowledge behind the people that are standing at those bowls and at the gongs and all the other things that I'm probably not calling the right things because that's what I call them. Because again, what y'all are doing is great, but I don't have to understand it all. I appreciated that little drippings would continue to come out, right? Things like the grounding instruments and the importance of those, and then just the intended purpose and things like that Noelle has shared about that our liquid vibrates at a different frequency, then that provides something special, really important to our body and how there can be healing in that. And when I get back to what's important to me and what I'm rooted in, it felt like I was making use of things that our world was created for. And I love that we could be in alignment in that. And even as I've invited other people, they have very much asked similar questions. And I have shared my experience, but invited them to reach out directly to the staff to ask the questions they have because just you're so well versed in being able to provide information that people need to have so that they can feel comfortable in my day-to-day life. The way that the intentional time that I've set aside for sound spa, the way that shows up for me on the regular is that I am not as reactive. All kinds of things can be going on around me. And I'm like, oh, look at that. That's so special. Really glad y'all have decided to do that. And I did not have that available to me before. I might have come completely undone when that was all over or at the end of my day. And so I think for me, in a lot of ways, it has given me the ability to just be in experiences. I can manage more tension in my life now than I've ever been able to before. I think in life, there are problems that we have to solve, and there is just tension to be managed. And the people that can manage more tension are the people that can get more done and they can go to different places in their life. For me, being able to open myself up and have space to explore things, it allowed me to stay creative. My mind is in more of a natural state than an adaptive state. And so we can be creative when we're in that natural state. I feel safe to be like, maybe that could happen, but maybe that wouldn't happen. And what if we tried? What if it did happen? What would be the worst thing that happened? It allowed me to just get creative around stuff and not feel so like such weight around things that maybe didn't need as much weight, or maybe Monday through Thursday if I need to adjust a week, or Tuesday through Friday. I've been able to see far enough ahead to go, you know what, that's going to maybe be a lot this week. And I need to make sure I've got 3 sound spas on the books, which means I have to move some things. And maybe I actually just need to cancel a day too, or maybe I need to wipe that weekend out to give myself the space I need. It's caused me to be able to see things differently and anticipate what I might need and also what other people might need. It's done that for other people that I brought with me as well. And I'm grateful for it forever. When I think about my battle rhythm with Sound Spa, which is what I consider it in my life, Sound Spa is one of the very important things that I'm doing for myself right now. I'm still very much in a period of continuing to heal some things as there's active hurt happening in my life, walking through a big personal experience. And again, I'm grateful for that though, because it again is allowing me to manage new things. So I am actively attending Sound Spa 2 to 3 times a week. If I only come once a week, it's just not enough for the current season that I'm in. I also run a business and have a family and am making some changes and growing different things in my life. And so there's just a lot happening in this season. It is a season of time where I am there 2 to 3 times a week. I don't think that will be forever, but right now it is one of the rocks in my schedule. When I look at my week, I am looking for pockets. Where can Sound Spa go? And if there are not enough pockets for Sound Spa in the week, I look at the next week to see, will I have another week like that? Because if so, I might need to adjust some things. One of the things I coach people on is time management. It is something that I schedule around and I move things for, and I pay attention to additional classes that are being offered or other times that I could fit that in life when we're very clear about what we want and the season that we're in and the things that we're building for. It really allows us to have clarity and purpose around it. For me in this season, that's what it looks like for me to be there. I look forward to a season where it might just be once a week or twice a week. And really that once a week would be probably ideal long term. I'm usually a Friday, Sunday girl. There's an awesome Thursday night class that I'm really enjoying. So I'm definitely, if I hit Thursday, Sunday or Friday, Sunday, but if I can ever hit a Monday or Wednesday, I do. I like the late afternoon classes. It's a good time for me to start coming down from the charge of the day. I do those evening classes, but I did do a Sunday morning class one time at 10, and that was incredible. Like kind of just set the whole day. I was like, oh, okay, that was good too. So yeah, that's my current battle rhythm. I think the only other thing that I think is important that a lot of people realize is that when we think about our health, we believe a lot of things that the world puts out to us about what we need to do to be our healthiest version of ourselves. But the reality is that stress and sleep are 2 of the most impactful things that we can do for our health. So if we want to release weight, if we want to have a healthier immune system, you need to focus on reducing your stress and sleeping more, not crazy more, but 7 to 9 hours a night, right? I think that many of us believe the lie for far too long in our lives that we're going to sleep when we're dead, or maybe that's the lie we're telling ourselves, right? Or we believe that's just not possible. You just don't know what kind of career I have, or you don't know what's happening right now. And I guess I would just say that we don't have to continue to perpetuate those things, and we do have choices. And I feel like Sound Spa gave me an opportunity when I really was struggling to find one, was doing all the things to work on reducing stress. I literally coached to some of those things. I was doing the things to really focus on sleep. And this has really been the key that has unlocked the door to those two things for me in so many ways. If somebody was hesitant about coming to the sound spa, I would be curious as to why. Tell me more about why, because if I understand why, then I can solve for it. I would say that the experience here is different. I don't think it's because it was one of the initial experiences I had. I've really tried to find other experiences since then, mostly for my clients that are all over the country. It is difficult to find someone that does it really well. The hesitation is because you have concerns about what's happening. Call them, ask questions, look online, ask somebody that's been going. I think that the risk is too high that you don't try it. The risk for you and where you're at, if you're thinking about doing this, unless you're just like, I just need a good night's sleep, which also is a fair reason. But like truly, if there is something happening in your life and somebody has pointed you in this direction, I would not miss the opportunity. The risk is too high to skip it versus it would be showing up in that space and they will answer your questions and help you ask for what you need and don't miss something that could be incredible.